Someone kept leaving trash bags in my yard every morning. I checked my camera. It was my neighbor's teen son, laughing every time. So I filled a bag with something special and left it on their porch at 5 a.m. Every morning for 2 weeks, I woke up to a fresh garbage bag dumped right in the middle of my front yard. Not on the sidewalk, not near my trash can, right on the grass, like it had been hand-placed there by someone with a grudge and bad taste. The first time, I figured it was just the wind. Maybe a stray raccoon got too enthusiastic with the neighbor's cans. The second time, I was annoyed. The third time, I started to suspect someone was messing with me on purpose. By the end of week 1, I was looking over my shoulder every time I took out the trash. My name's Ben. I'm 34 years old, single, and I live in a quiet little suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. It's the kind of neighborhood where nothing ever really happens. Retired couples, dog walkers, and overly enthusiastic HOA meetings. I bought my house 3 years ago. It was a fixer-upper, but I loved the yard, the trees, and the fact that it was far from the noise of the city. I worked remote in IT, so peace and quiet mattered. This place gave me that. Until the trash started. At first, I tried to be rational. I'd pick up the bag, toss it, and go about my day. But when it started happening every single morning, no missed days, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't random. Someone was doing this on purpose, and I was going to find out who. So I went online and ordered a cheap motion sensor security camera. It arrived the next day. I mounted it near my porch light, angled to cover the front yard and driveway. I didn't tell anyone, just silently waited for the next drop-off. That night, I had trouble sleeping. I kept thinking about who could possibly have a problem with me. I didn't host parties. I didn't park weird. I wasn't noisy. I waved at everyone. I mowed my damn lawn twice a week. I was the model neighbor. So why me? Next morning, like clockwork, bam. Trash bag, right in the middle of the lawn. This one was worse than usual. Something had leaked out of it, a greasy trail running toward the sidewalk. I didn't touch it. I just grabbed my coffee, opened the camera app on my phone, and rewound the footage. What I saw nearly made me drop my mug. It was a kid, maybe 16 or 17. Thin build, hoodie, sneakers, walking right up to my lawn with a black trash bag over his shoulder like Santa Claus on garbage duty. He dumped it, turned to my camera, and smiled. Then he laughed. Full-on shoulders moving, smug little laugh, like it was a private joke between us. Like he knew I'd be watching, and he was proud of himself. I paused the video, zoomed in. My stomach dropped. It was Kyle, the neighbor's teenage son. Lived 3 houses down with his mom, Mrs. Darden. I'd spoken to her maybe 5 times in the 3 years I'd lived here. She seemed polite, a bit cold, but nothing out of the ordinary. Kyle, though, he always struck me as twitchy. Loud dirt bike engine at 9 p.m., loud music at midnight. Once saw him throw an energy drink can onto someone's lawn without flinching. I knew kids his age could be obnoxious. But this was something else. This wasn't just some rebellious teenager being annoying. This was targeted. And now that I had proof, crystal clear, time-stamped footage, I was going to do something about it. But the question wasn't, how do I stop this? It was, do I want to stop it quietly, or make it unforgettable? Because in that moment, as I stared at Kyle's smug face frozen on my screen, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about trash anymore. This was war. I thought about storming over there the moment I saw the footage. But I didn't. Instead, I sat with it, brewed a fresh cup of coffee, rewatched the clip, studied every frame. Kyle dropping the bag, laughing, turning his back like nothing mattered. Then I printed out 3 stills, nice and clear, on my office printer. I slipped them into a manila folder and tucked it under my arm. I was going to handle this like an adult. It was a Saturday morning, around 10 a.m., when I walked down the street to the Darden's house. Her car was in the driveway, and the front blinds were open. I rang the doorbell twice. Nothing. Just when I was about to turn back, the door creaked open. Mrs. Darden looked like she'd just woken up, hair a little wild, robe tied around her, holding a steaming mug in her hand. Yes. Hi, I'm Ben, from a few houses down. I know who you are, she said quickly, her voice clipped. That was the first red flag. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a second. It's about your son. Her smile barely flickered. Kyle? What about him? I opened the folder and held out one of the prints. She glanced at it, then at me, and backed down. Her expression changed instantly. Not shocked, not apologetic, just tense. This was taken by my security camera this morning, I said. It's the 3rd week someone's been dumping trash bags on my lawn. I installed the camera 2 days ago. Your son's on it. She looked at the photo again, slowly, then gave a short, uncomfortable laugh. Oh, come on. It's just a harmless prank. Boys that age do stupid things. You really came down here with photos. I blinked. Excuse me. She sipped her coffee. I mean, you didn't need to make it a whole thing. I'll talk to him. But really a folder? Pictures? Isn't that a bit much? I felt something crawl up my spine. I've been picking up rotten food, old wrappers, and soaked trash bags off my grass every morning. This isn't a joke. I gave you proof because I thought we could handle this like neighbors. She didn't even blink. I said I'll talk to him. That was it. No apology. No offer to make it right. Just a dry, dismissive promise to talk to him. I nodded slowly. Okay. I just wanted you to know what was happening. She shut the door without another word. I walked back home feeling something I hadn't expected. Insulted. Not just by Kyle, but by her. The whole vibe. That boys will be boys tone. Like I was the crazy one for documenting the garbage campaign happening on my lawn. I told myself maybe she was just embarrassed. Maybe she'd really talk to him. Maybe the trash would stop. It didn't. The next morning, I woke up to not one, but two garbage bags. One on the lawn, the other dumped right on my driveway, and smeared across my white picket fence. What looked like mashed bananas, spoiled beans, and something brown I didn't want to identify. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was a message. I stood there, holding a garden hose in one hand and my phone in the other, staring at the mess. The bags were ripped open. Flies were already buzzing. The morning sun was hitting the mess like a spotlight. And Kyle? I spotted him across the street, standing in their driveway, sipping a can of soda, watching me, smiling. I didn't wave. I didn't yell. But inside, I made a decision. If they wanted to play games, I was going to win. Not with shouting, not with threats, but with something far more satisfying. They'd made it dirty. I was going to make it unforgettable. The smell was unreal. After I finished hosing down the fence, I stood there with my hands on my hips, watching the brown sludge swirl down into the gutter. I don't know what they used, but it stuck to everything. The paint, the grass, the soles of my shoes. I had to change clothes twice and throw out a perfectly good pair of gloves. And across the street, Kyle and his mother acted like nothing happened. That day, I didn't just clean. I documented. I took high-resolution photos of the fence, the driveway, and the trash bags. I emailed myself the footage from the security cam and backed it up twice. If they wanted to make it a game, I was building a playbook. But it was what happened the next night that really flipped the switch. I was working late, wrapping up a project for a client overseas. Around midnight, I stepped outside to grab something from my car. That's when I saw it, banana peels again. This time on the hood of my vehicle. My windshield had been hit with what looked like spaghetti. And stuffed into my side mirror was a paper plate covered in some kind of barbecue slop. The whole car reeked. That's when I snapped. Not with rage. Not by banging on their door or screaming across the lawn. No. I sat down at my desk, opened a new tab, and Googled worst-smelling substances you can legally buy. What I found was a delightfully disgusting rabbit hole. Over the next 2 days, I gathered supplies. I drove across town to a bait shop and bought 2 cans of expired sardines. From a pet store, I grabbed used cat litter from their disposal bin. They were surprisingly cooperative when I said it was for pest deterrent. I added in a raw egg, some old lawn clippings I let rot in a bucket, and a half bottle of milk that had gone bad in my fridge. But the final touch? I printed out a fake letter from the Homeowners Association. I made it look just real enough. It warned the Dardens of unsanitary conditions and said continued violations would result in further inspections. Then, in tiny gray letters at the bottom, P.S. You messed with the wrong guy. I sealed everything inside a black trash bag, triple knotted, then placed it in another bag just for extra insurance. The thing weighed nearly 20 pounds. I left it in my freezer overnight to let the sardines soak into everything. At 4:50 a.m., I woke up, got dressed, and slipped out the front door. The world was still dark, barely stirring. Not a sound on the street. I walked down the sidewalk with my personal biohazard bag, crossed the road, and placed it gently on their porch, right by the welcome mat. Then I took a step back, pulled out my phone, and snapped a photo for posterity. One shot. Just enough light from their porch lamp to see the black bag, sealed tight, with the official letter slipped in the top. No mess. No vandalism. Nothing illegal. Just a gift. I turned around and walked home with the calm of a man who had just set a ticking time bomb. I didn't need to see them open it. I didn't need to hear them scream. But I was up early the next morning anyway. And I was ready, with a fresh cup of coffee and a front row seat behind the curtains. What happened next? Let's just say, breakfast never tasted so satisfying. 6:12 a.m. That's when it happened. The first sound I heard was a sharp, high-pitched yelp. Not the kind that means someone stubbed their toe. This was sharper, panicked, followed by a gag. I peeked through the curtain and instantly saw the scene unfolding across the street like a suburban soap opera. Mrs. Darden was standing on her porch, wearing a long lavender robe and slippers, one hand pressed to her mouth like she was trying not to throw up. In front of her, my little care package, half exploded and leaking down the steps. The bag had burst open at the bottom. A grayish trail of God knows what was oozing down toward the lawn. Then came Kyle. He must have heard his mom scream because a moment later, he stumbled out behind her, shirtless and yawning. He looked around, saw the mess, and made the mistake of nudging it with his foot. Big mistake. Whatever sludge had been fermenting inside that bag all night made direct contact with his sock and splattered up the side of the porch. The moment his foot connected, the stench must have hit him full force. He recoiled, nearly tripping over his own slippers. I couldn't hear them clearly, but I didn't have to. The body language said it all. Kyle started pointing wildly, at the bag, then across the street, right at me. I stepped back from the window and calmly walked into the kitchen. Coffee, toast, a little butter. I ate in peace as the show continued next door. They didn't call the cops. They didn't come banging on my door. But about 30 minutes later, the entire porch was covered in towels, buckets, and what looked like 3 bottles of bleach. Kyle was hosing down the steps with one hand and holding his nose with the other. I'd expected rage, retaliation, but all I got was silence. No more trash bags that day. No mysterious food smeared on my property. No banana peels. No barbecue plates on my car. Just quiet. And for the first time in weeks, I actually felt like I could breathe again. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside just to feel the fresh air. I watered the front hedges, swept the driveway, and made sure the security cam was angled perfectly. That's when I saw the envelope, tucked just barely under my welcome mat. Plain white. No name on the front. Just slid there sometime during the day. I opened it right there on the porch. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed in big black font. We know it was you. Stay on your side of the street. No signature. No threats. Just that one smug sentence. I read it 3 times. Then I laughed. Because if that was all they had left, anonymous notes, then I'd already won. They knew. They weren't denying it. They just didn't expect someone to fight back. Not like this. Not with their own methods. And here's the best part. At the very bottom of their porch that morning, soaked and stuck to the steps, had been my fake HOA letter. I'd folded it just right so it slipped out the top of the bag when it burst. Kyle had picked it up and read it aloud to his mom. I knew because I caught just enough of it on the security cam's mic. When he got to the bottom and read out loud, P.S. You messed with the wrong guy. He looked straight across the street at my house. We locked eyes for maybe 2 seconds. And that was the last time he looked smug. 2 days passed. No trash. No noise. No fresh messes. Just the sound of birds and the regular hum of the neighborhood lawnmowers. For the first time in nearly a month, I slept in without waking up to the slap of a bag hitting grass. I thought it was over. But when I opened the door on the 3rd morning, I was greeted by something else entirely. Not trash. Not banana peels. A badge. A uniformed police officer was standing on my porch. Ben Carter, he asked, flipping through a small notepad. Yeah, I said slowly. Is something wrong? He looked up at me. Neutral tone. Professional face. Mind if I ask you a couple of questions about your neighbors? The Dardens. Of course. Of course it came to this. I stepped aside and motioned him in, but he shook his head. Won't take long. Just need to ask about an incident they reported. He flipped the page. They claim you left a threatening note and a hazardous object on their porch. Something about a bag filled with rotting food and feces. I blinked. Hazardous. That's their word. They're calling it harassment. I exhaled, slowly. Officer, would you mind if I showed you something first? He gave a slight nod. I walked back into the house, grabbed the manila folder, and pulled out the stills, Kyle laughing, dumping trash, morning after morning. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up the footage. I let it play from the first day to the day of the sludge bag. I even showed him the fake HOA letter, zooming in to highlight the tiny PS. You messed with the wrong guy, and then the even smaller disclaimer printed beneath that. This letter is not official and is intended as a joke. Please clean up your behavior, not just your porch. He actually chuckled at that. I didn't threaten anyone, I told him. I matched petty with petty, but I documented everything. They escalated first. He watched Kyle dump a bag, rewinded, watched again. Well, he said, scratching behind his ear, you're clearly not the one who started this. Honestly, this is more of a neighborhood dispute than a criminal case. Am I in trouble? No, he said. But word of advice? Keep the evidence. People like that, they don't admit fault. They just shift the blame until they find someone else to play victim. He handed back the stills, shook my hand, and left. I closed the door behind him, leaned against it, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. So that was their move. Not cleaning up the mess. Not apologizing. Not even denying it. They went for pity. Called the cops, probably hoping I'd be scared into silence. Maybe they thought I'd panic. Fold. They still didn't get it. I wasn't the type to back down. That night, I walked out and angled the camera again. This time to catch both my yard and their driveway in one frame. I double-checked my backup storage. Updated the timestamp settings. Made sure my house was locked, lights timed. They wanted quiet war. They got it. But I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I was going on offense. And I wasn't going to use fish guts this time. I was going to use paperwork. Real, official paperwork. The kind of thing they couldn't ignore. The kind of thing that had teeth. Because when someone pushes hard enough, and you push back just a little smarter, that's when you stop being the neighbor and become the reckoning. I wasn't going to touch another trash bag. Not physically. Not emotionally. They'd taken this neighborhood and turned it into a war zone of banana peels and barbecue stains. But the moment they got the police involved, that was the moment I stopped playing defense. I was done with baiting. Done with pranks. I wanted something that would last. So I gathered everything. Not just my folder this time. I built a whole digital case file. Timestamped videos. Photos of the bags. Footage of Kyle smearing food on my fence. The audio of him reading my fake HOA letter aloud. The anonymous note they left on my mat. Even the officer's visit. There was a recording from my doorbell cam. And I sent it all to the real HOA. I didn't write a dramatic message. Just the evidence. A single-line email. Please advise on appropriate next steps. This is ongoing and escalating. Within 3 days, I got a reply. HOA board wanted to set a meeting, virtual, next Monday night. They reviewed the files, thanked me for documenting everything so thoroughly. They said they'd escalate accordingly. And then, silence again. For about 2 weeks, nothing happened. No more trash. No more notes. No more smirks from Kyle. I began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they'd gotten the message after all. Until I noticed the orange sticker. I was walking past their house one morning when I saw it. Bright, official, stuck to the side of their trash bins. Notice of violation. Improper waste disposal. Repeated sanitary offenses. Property inspection scheduled. I nearly laughed out loud. Turns out, the HOA didn't just slap them with a warning, they hit them with fines. 3 separate ones, actually. 1 for trash dumping, 1 for property defacement, and 1 for disturbing neighborhood peace. But the real kicker? They scheduled a full sanitation inspection of their home and outdoor property, including porch, driveway, trash bins, and side yard. I wasn't there when it happened, but my neighbor across the street was. She texted me a photo. 3 men in polo shirts and gloves, walking around the Darden's property with clipboards while Kyle stood in the garage, trying to hide behind a pile of boxes. And Mrs. Darden? Out front, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to scream. The fines came shortly after, confirmed by the HOA follow-up email. They totaled over $2,100. And just like that, it was over. Trash stopped for good. Kyle vanished from the front porch. No more music. No late-night engine revving. Not even a glance in my direction. A month later, I saw the for sale sign. At first, I thought it was a bluff. But then came the realtor photos. The yard was cleaned up, the house freshly painted. Kyle's dirt bike disappeared. And within a few weeks, a moving truck pulled into their driveway. I watched them pack. No one said goodbye. Not one wave. Not one glare. Just silent boxes, a tired mother, and a sulking teenager carrying his own mistakes out the front door. As the truck rolled away, I stood on my porch, arms crossed, same stance Mrs. Darden once gave me, and just watched. Not out of spite. Out of peace. Because sometimes the most satisfying revenge isn't a prank. It isn't a bag full of rot. It's letting people destroy themselves when they think they're untouchable. They brought the trash. I brought the consequence. And when they left, I went out to my front lawn, freshly mowed, clean and quiet, and stood in the exact spot where those garbage bags used to land. The grass had grown back. The stains had faded. And just like that, so had they. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.